Let's go back to 477 BC. We're in the Thessaly region of Greece. A wealthy nobleman is throwing a massive banquet to celebrate a victory. Wine flows like a river. And the star of the night is Simonides, one of the most celebrated poets of the era. Simonides takes the stage, recites his poem, and collects his applause. Just then, a messenger arrives and calls him outside. Two young men are waiting at the door to see him. Simonides steps out of the hall, and the moment he walks through that door, the birth of the most powerful memory technique in the world begins. Because the instant Simonides steps outside, the roof of the building collapses. The entire hall is buried under rubble. Families can't identify their loved ones. Who was who? Who was sitting where? Nothing is clear. But Simonides notices something. He closes his eyes and mentally reconstructs the banquet hall. He sees the tables and chairs and remembers exactly who was sitting in each seat, one by one. Simonides points out each person's location, allowing the bodies to be returned to their families. And that night, he realizes something. When he links information to physical locations, his memory becomes almost limitless. This moment was the birth of the Loci method, known today as the memory palace, a technique used for 2,500 years. Roman senators memorized hours-long speeches with this technique. Medieval monks carved entire books into their memory with it. And yes, what some call a mind palace is exactly this. But this technique isn't just a movie scene or an ancient legend. Modern neuroscience has proven why it works. And today, I'm going to teach it to you from scratch. A study published in 2017 scanned the brains of athletes competing in the World Memory Championship. These people could memorize 500 digits in 5 minutes, or a shuffled deck of cards in order in half an hour. Researchers wondered if these people's brains were structurally different. The result was surprising. Their brains weren't structurally different from ordinary people's. Their intelligence levels weren't above average either. But there was one difference. Brain scans showed that the regions activated while processing information were different, and more than 90% of the participants were using the exact same technique. That technique, as you'd expect, was the memory palace. So how can locations hold memory this powerfully? The reason is essentially evolutionary. For tens of thousands of years, the brain had to remember locations to survive. Where was the water source? Where was the dangerous area? Which way led back to the cave? Spatial memory formed the foundation of survival, so the brain developed a special, powerful system for it. But for abstract information, the brain has no such powerful system, because our ancestors weren't under survival pressure to memorize 50 items for an exam. This is exactly the imbalance the memory palace corrects. You'll place a piece of information somewhere, and because your brain remembers that place, it will remember the information along with it. Think of it like a library. If you dump 1,000 books randomly into one room, finding the one you want becomes impossible. But if you place each book on a specific shelf, in a specific order, you can find it with your eyes closed. The memory palace is essentially placing information on shelves inside your brain. Studies show that ordinary people who train with this technique for 6 weeks show a 62% improvement in memorizing word lists. Now I'm going to teach you this technique step by step, and not just teach it. We're going to practice it together right here in this video. Step 1. Choose your palace. The first rule of the memory palace: you're not building an actual palace. You're using a place you already know, are familiar with, and could walk through with your eyes closed. It could be your home, your school, your workplace, or a route you walk every day. What matters is being able to clearly visualize every corner of that place in your mind. Now do this with me. Think of your home. You walk through the door. What's on the right or left? Which room is first? What's in that room? What's sitting on the table? What do you see through the window? The more vividly you imagine these details, the more powerfully the technique works, because the brain remembers vivid images far better than dull ones. Step 2. Define your stations. Now create a walking route through that space. Start at the door and move from room to room, point to point. Each stop becomes a station, and you'll place one piece of information at each station. For example, your home route might look like this: front door, shoe rack, hallway lamp, living room couch, and bed. These 8 stations mean 8 shelves where you can store 8 pieces of information. If you want more stations, you can add more detail. The bathroom mirror, the balcony plant pot, the desk lamp in your study. You can easily create 20 or 30 stations in a single home. Step 3. Place the information. And here's the real secret of the memory palace. Just placing information at a station isn't enough. You need to connect it to that spot in a way that's absurd, funny, striking, or even disgusting. And remember strange, emotional, unexpected things extremely well. This is called the von Restorff effect. Say you need to memorize a shopping list. Milk, eggs, banana, tomato, pasta, and etc. First station, the front door. Instead of a doorknob, there's a giant milk bottle. Milk is spilling everywhere. Second station, the shoe rack. Every slot is filled with cracked eggs. Yolk is dripping everywhere. Shells scattered around. There's a horrible smell in the house. Third station, the hallway lamp. Instead of light, a giant banana is hanging from the lamp. Yellow, glossy, and swinging comically. Fourth station, the living room couch. You sit down, but it's overflowing with detergent foam. Foam sticks to everything and gets into your eye. Fifth station, the television. You turn it on, but on the screen, a loaf of bread is delivering the news. Wearing a tie, reading the headlines very seriously. Sixth station, the kitchen counter. A giant wheel of cheese sits there, but the cheese is alive. It has eyes and it's staring at you. Seventh station, the refrigerator. You open it and hundreds of tomatoes burst out, turning the kitchen bright red. Eighth station, the bed. Your bed is covered in pasta. You lie down and the noodles start poking into you. Okay, now picture these images in your mind. Funny or a little disgusting, right? But that's exactly why you'll remember them. Let's test it quickly. What was at the front door and the shoe rack? What happened to the couch? Do you remember? See? You remember all of it, and you only saw this list 2 minutes ago. With traditional rote memorization, learning this list this fast would have been nearly impossible. But with the memory palace, you used your brain's spatial superpower. Strategy 1. Turn abstract concepts into concrete symbols. Your brain can't visualize abstract concepts. Democracy or photosynthesis isn't an image. But you can create concrete symbols to represent them. Democracy, a ballot box, photosynthesis, a flower eating sunlight. Inflation, a swelling balloon, gravity, a falling apple. Create your own symbol for every abstract concept. The more personal and strange it is, the better you'll remember it, because your brain holds onto symbols you created far better than someone else's. Strategy 2. Turn numbers and dates into images. Numbers are one of the hardest types of information for the brain. Abstract, meaningless, and they all look alike. But you can turn numbers into images the same way. With a simple system, you can match each digit to an object based on its shape. Say you need to memorize a specific year, you can code each digit the same way. A candle, a sailboat, a seahorse, and a pair of handcuffs. At a station in your memory palace, imagine this. A candle lighting up a sailboat, and on the boat, a seahorse in handcuffs. Absurd? Yes. Forgettable? Never. Strategy 3. Turn processes and sequences into stories. Say you need to memorize the stages of cell division in biology, 4 terms that all sound and look alike. Turn each stage into a character, a professor for the first stage, a metal robot for the second, a shepherd for the third, a television for the fourth. A story across 4 stations of your memory palace. At the door, a professor greets you. In the hallway, a metal robot is walking. In the living room, a shepherd is grazing his sheep. In the bedroom, a giant television is giving a speech. Ridiculous? Absolutely, but your brain loves this ridiculousness and never lets it go. Even a week later, you'll remember this story and recite the stages in order. Strategy 4. Build multiple palaces. One house gives you 20 or 30 stations, but an exam might require you to memorize 200 pieces of information. Build more than one palace, and the problem is solved. Your home for biology, your school for history, your workplace for chemistry. Each subject lives in its own separate location. That way, subjects don't get mixed up, and every time you enter that location, the information for that subject automatically lines up. World memory champions typically use dozens, even hundreds of palaces, but starting with 3 to 5 is more than enough for you. Most people who learn the memory palace get discouraged on their first attempt. I tried it, but it didn't work, they say. This usually comes down to one of 3 mistakes. Mistake 1, the images aren't vivid or absurd enough. Just thinking there's milk at the door isn't enough. You need to see it, touch it. The more senses you add, the more powerfully you'll remember. In neuroscience, this is called multisensory encoding. Every sense you add opens a new neural pathway, and the more pathways you have to a piece of information, the more solidly you'll remember it. Mistake 2, you don't know the location well enough. If you pick a place as your palace that you've never actually been to, your brain can't sharpen the details and the information won't stick. Always use real places you know closely. The strongest palaces are places you've experienced hundreds of times. Your home, your school, a route you walk regularly. Mistake 3. The stations are too close together. If you place your stations too near each other, the images blur together. There needs to be clear physical distance between stations. 2 or 3 stations per room is enough. More creates clutter and confusion. And as a bonus mistake, not practicing. The memory palace is a skill, not a piece of information. It gets stronger with every session like a muscle. Most people hear memory palace and think it's just an exam trick, but this technique's real power shows up in everyday life. Remembering names. Imagine meeting 8 new people, and 5 minutes later, you don't remember a single name. When you hear someone's name, link it to a distinctive feature of their face. The more absurd the connection, the better it sticks. People who use this technique can remember 50 or 60 names in one night, and people love having their names remembered. It makes you instantly unforgettable. Presentations and speeches. Say you're giving a presentation with 10 main points. Will you keep glancing at cards or speak fluently while looking your audience in the eye? Place each main point at a station in your memory palace. When you begin, mentally walk through the door and move station by station. The path inside your head carries you effortlessly without ever needing to glance at a note. Language learning. When learning new words, place each word at a station in your palace. You can turn that word into a ridiculous little story in your head. With this method, learning 20 or 30 new words a day is very realistic, and combined with spaced repetition, you can build a large vocabulary within a few months. Daily tasks and to-do lists. In the morning, you have 7 things on your mind, and you're too lazy to write them down. You can place them in your memory palace instead. Bill at the door, dry cleaning at the shoe rack, groceries in the hallway, an email to send in the living room. As you mentally repeat the walk throughout the day, you won't miss a thing. The memory palace isn't just an exam hack, it's become a life tool. After placing information in your memory palace, walk through it at set intervals. Close your eyes, start at the door, and move station by station, trying to recall the information at each point. This walk exercises active recall. Your brain retrieves the information, and the neural connections grow even stronger. Do this the first day, the next day, 3 days later, and a week later. With every walk, the images get clearer, the recall gets faster, and the memory becomes more solid. You can do this walk anywhere, on the bus, while walking, before bed, even 5 minutes before an exam. You don't need to open a book, just close your eyes and start walking through your palace. As one world memory champion has put it, walking through the palace starts to feel less like effort and more like a game, one that gets a little easier and a little more fun every time you play it. We're nearing the end of our video now. A technique born 2,500 years ago in the rubble of a banquet hall is still, today, the most powerful memory tool humanity knows. And now, you know this technique too, but knowing isn't enough. You need to do it. If the memory palace stays a theory in your head, it won't work. You need to build it, fill it, and walk through it. After this video, do this. Starting from your front door, define 10 stations. Write them down on paper. Then tomorrow morning, before you go grocery shopping, place your shopping list at these 10 stations. Create absurd images and try going to the store without your list. If you remembered everything on your list, and I think you will, I'd love it if you shared your experience in the comments, because in that moment, you'll have proven your memory isn't bad. You were just using it wrong. If you want more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Take care.